Ops 4 beta went live, and you're jumping in for the first time. What do? Well, one of the big things obviously with Black Ops 4 is specialists, and so with 10 of them on offer here with the beta, that's a lot to jump into initially. Now granted, over time you're going to get enough gameplay and experience with each of them that you'll probably be able to rank your own and find a favorite that you really enjoy out of Black Ops 4's specialist system. But that said, jumping into it first and foremost, when you want to do your best right off the bat, what's the best choice? What's the go-to specialist here for Black Ops 4? Now, as it stands right now, of course, we only have a couple of playlists where you can have one specialist per team, so that's something that it might be a little bit of a quick draw on that, but if you really want your pick of the litter, which ones should you go for? So that's what we're going to be talking about here in this video. We're going to be ranking these specialists from worst to best here for you guys, so you can get the rundown of pretty much everything, kind of take it as an ultimate specialist guide, but also give you what I think are the order of succession in terms of worst to best. So if you've played around with any of these and you disagree with it, feel free to let me know in the comments section down below your list of the top 10 specialists here and what order you'd put them in. But for now, let's jump right into what I believe are the specialists in order, going from worst to best. So firstly, starting off with this one, let's start out with number 10 being Torque. Now, Torque is a new specialist we haven't seen in Black Ops 3, no returning characteristics or anything like that. Instead, it's almost like something you'd see right out of Rainbow Six Siege, to which Torque has a barricade as well as a razor wire available to him. So the razor wire is the ability that you can end up getting a couple of times, and of course the barricade is what you end up having is that ultimate. And so the razor wire slows down enemies and does a little bit of damage if players were to jump into it. You can go through it and all that, but it does give you a little bit of damage if you try and run through it as an enemy. Now, this really isn't the most practical thing in my opinion because it's not all that big. It does cover some smaller corridors, of course, which is nice, but the barricade is definitely by and far the better of the two that you'll see here with this because it is a larger one. It offers a little bit of a head glitch in and of itself, plus it also emanates a sort of guardian effect from Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, in which it's a little bit more supercharged from that, and it actually does a decent amount of damage. If you end up getting within a few meters in game of it, it actually takes, I believe the quick number that I saw was like 50 HP off per hit, per tick that it does, and that's about once every second or so. So it's gonna be really tough to get by these if it's in a close quarter situation, and so in that sense, it's actually a pretty solid choice for cutting down a lane an enemy may come down. I actually ended up getting a kill or two off of it, so it's a quick tick that does some damage, but regardless, that's gonna kick off number 10 here at this. Moving over into number 9, we're gonna end up taking a look at Firebreak with this one. Now, I say this because it's a lot weaker than what we saw within Black Ops 3, and of course when you have to pick just one, or in the sense of Chaos TDM, you can end up picking 2 per team, but it's once again something that you have to kind of weigh your pros and cons to which what would benefit your gameplay the most. Firebreak is by no means not a fun specialist to use. He's a ton of fun to play around with, but his reactor core and purifier might not be the most situationally best options for gameplay. Now that said, he ends up having the purifier and the reactor core. Let's start out with the ability of the reactor core. This allows you to stun enemies, but also can punish you if you're on it for too long. But to me, it's not the best thing to do unless you're around a wall, like actually having a wall separating you and a group of enemies, because if you end up doing it, you're defenseless and out in the open, and enemies are really only just slightly stunned when burned. They can end up shooting back, and so in that sense, it's not something you really want to leave yourself too vulnerable by, because once you're using the reactor core, you can't shoot or anything. You're just standing there in the open, hoping not to get shot at. One also cool thing that the reactor core does that it actually temporarily disables the ability to use any regen or stim shot for anybody that is affected by that. So kind of OP in the sense of disabling health regeneration, but also is a cool little factor that can go into your gameplay. Now as for the purifier, it's a lot weaker than that of what we've seen in Black Ops 3's purifier. It's no longer a one hit and guaranteed death, even if you are just barely touched by it, which is nice. So it takes a little bit longer, but it definitely can still do some damage. So if you really wanted to try and burn up some enemies, you can't really go wrong with Firebreak. Number 8, we're gonna move over into Battery. This one is a lot of fun on one part. The War Machine was nerfed a little bit like we saw with the Purifier being nerfed from Black Ops 3's iteration of that, but it is something that the cluster grenades kind of bring this up a little bit for me here, because the cluster grenades are 1, a lot of fun to use, 2, you don't have to equip a grenade, and 3, it also ends up having multiple charges. So Battery of course has that War Machine and cluster grenades. Now the cluster grenades are like the Semtex, but they also have have multiple explosions, so you can do some nice damage here with this one. I think the one clip I got even was a triple kill. Initially it was a double, and then the secondary charges ended up getting that third for me. But the War Machine, again, same War Machine that we knew of in Black Ops 3, but a little less useful simply because it's not as powerful as it was. Now, moving over into the 7th spot, that's going to go to Ajax, because this is, again, another brand new one within Black Ops 4, and this is one that I'm kind of expecting will get a slight nerf to it. I saw a lot of clips of people talking about this one over on Twitter, to which I can understand where people would get enraged by this, but the Ballistic Shield and the 9-bang are Ajax's specialties here at this one. The 9-bang is essentially a concussion that you can cook for a little bit more, and it can be rather OP if you end up taking the time to prep it all the way for the highest amount of stun, because it blinds players for a long period of time. I think the highest it can go up to is 5 or 6 seconds, which is quite a lot of time for your screen to be completely white and for you to have no idea where the enemy is. Now, that said, the Ballistic Shield also is something that can be quite annoying, because you end up pulling out a shield that offers protection, plus you can shoot through it with a machine pistol. So kind of annoying to go up against. It's something that you can counter, you just have to sideswipe them or hit them in the back. And with how much the map rotations and map flow works within Black Ops 4, it does happen a lot more than you may think, getting shot in the back. But the shield and pistol combo can be a little annoying, and so if you want to end up trying something new, Ajax is a decent choice as well. After that, though, we're going to jump in number 6 with Nomad, who ends up having the K9 unit as well as the Mesh Mine, and you can think of the Hive in that sense, but a little bit more dumbed down of a version here at that one. But the Mesh Mine is something that, again, think trip mines and maybe a little bit like the Hive from Black Ops 3, but only 2 charges of them. You end up actually shooting them like you would with a rubber band slingshot, and they end up going to wherever you want to place them, but they will do a little bit of damage if you walk into them, but they're a little bit more concealed, not as powerful, and so in that sense, that's not really my favorite part about Nomad. What is my favorite part, though, is the K9 unit, because dogs do come back for the first time since Black Ops 2 in the Black Ops franchise, and I think it was also since Ghost entirely. But that said, the K9 unit is something that the doggo, he's hardcore. It's incredibly fast, and I'm not sure if that's going to be adjusted or not, but sometimes it felt like the dog was flying at me or my dog was flying towards someone, but it's got some speed regardless. Now, the seeking may be adjusted, and it might be a little bit just of the logic here with that is adjusted after the beta, because I saw 2 occasions where the enemy dog stopped coming after me and instead turned around either after I or a teammate killed the Nomad at some point with a mid-range engagement, and he spawned back up. So it wasn't even like something where I sniped the guy and the dog tried to run at me from across the map. It was relatively a regular AR gunfight, and the guy ended up spawning up, so the guard dog, instead of attacking me or finishing off me or a teammate, they decided to just jump back and go right back to the owner. So that's something that might be adjusted a little bit in time, but it was something, if you want to jump in with something that will definitely get you a kill or 2 here with that, the K9 unit and Nomad are a solid choice for that one. After that, going into our final 5, Prophet is what we're going to lead off with next, to which he has the Tempest and the Seeker Shock Mine. Now, both of these are pretty solid. The Tempest isn't exactly what you'd expect from Black Ops 3 if you're jumping in with the same expectations. It's different, but the Seeker Shock Mine is pretty OP actually if you don't realize how to counter them. These will seek out an enemy or enemies and stun them for what seems like 5 to 10 seconds at max, but you can counter that by repeatedly pressing square, or when it comes out on Xbox, the X button, but it ends up shocking you and leaving you completely immobile and defenseless for however long you don't counter it. So in that sense, it's absolutely fantastic if you can track this thing and follow it around and it ends up shocking some players for you. I think at one point, I almost had a quad feed actually, picking off 4 enemies stunned by this at one point. I think I ended up picking up the 3-piece, shooting at the 4th, and then the 5th guy on the team actually ended up was the one that shot me from the side or something, but it can do some absolute work here for you. But the Tempest is a lot of fun, but again, it's much more tame than Black Ops 3's. That's kind of the theme with the returning specialists. They're just not the same. They're slightly dumbed down and not as OP. The Tempest, though, you have to end up hitting the player, then hit them again to kill them. So the first Tempest charge ends up almost being like a stun or a drop down for that one, but they can chain together. I also found out the hard way that if one downs you and you drop into water, well, it kind of follows the real life logic that electricity and water, well, you die. So keep that in mind if you're by a cliff by water. The Prophet's a lot of fun to play around with also. Number 4, though, I'm going to end up putting Ruin in this slot. He ends up having the Grav Slam and the Grapple Gun. Now, I say this because the Grav Slam is still pretty useful, but the Grapple Gun is honestly probably one of my favorite things in Black Ops 4 because it helps traverse the maps so well. Now, even without the perk that will allow you to get these quicker, the Grapple Gun is actually something that recharges relatively fast to begin with. I think it's like a 10-second cooldown or something like that, maybe 10 to 15 seconds, but in terms terms of getting around the map, that is 100% the best thing to be able to use here with this one. So in that sense, it's incredibly useful and is something that I really want to use every single time. So it bumps Ruin way up there on the list here for me. But then the grab slam, of course, is something that is not as dramatic of an animation and maybe not even as powerful as it was in Black Ops 3, but it's still situationally a fantastic thing you can use. Picking off double kills, triple kills. I think I've even seen a quad feed already over on Twitter, but definitely useful if you end up wanting something that'll help you maneuver the map, but also can pack a punch. Now, after that, coming up on this list, we end up having Seraph. Now, Seraph has a very situational use here, I think, with the ability, but the Annihilator is just a special place in my heart that I love it, and I jumped in immediately with this. Now, it actually was toned down a little bit from the E3 build and also the reveal as well. It actually only ends up giving you 6 shots in the Annihilator, which is definitely much different than that of what we saw at E3 in the reveal. I think at the reveal there's only a time limit, and maybe even like that also at E3. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was something that was definitely toned down, still can absolutely pack a punch, and you earn it on a relatively stable basis as well. But the other thing that is really good for Seraph is that you end up having the tac deploy beacon. This is something that is brilliant for objective play, or I guess if you want to take it from the hero versus bad guy approach, it's also good for spawn traps. Now, I know that I was dropping these in control so that my team could spawn right up on the control location, but I also have seen it where people have placed them near my spawn or even in my spawn, to the point where the spawn system right now isn't as reactive as it probably should be, so we don't flip out immediately. But regardless of how you want to play it, the tac deploy beacon is nice to give your team another advantage on jumping into one specific location to spawn up. And being that there is no respawn delay in what we have in the beta, of course, it's nice to get right back into the action, literally. You're not going to have to run 10 seconds or so and then die and then do the same thing over again, pick up a kill, and repeat the process. Instead, you're literally right there in the action, assuming your team or you ends up placing the tac deploy beacon in a relatively stable location. But that said, that's going to move us over into the final two. Now, number 2 being a brand new one as well, that being Crash. Now, Crash is one that he has the TAC 5 and the Assault Pack. And the Assault Pack, I don't really care all that much for. I know there is Scavenger in Black Ops 4, and I'm totally cool with that if I want to stay alive and get some streaks going and I need some ammo if I end up coming close to running out. The Assault Pack is definitely nice. It grants more ammo immediately, plus it also gives you points for kills and shares as well. If you end up having the Assault Pack out and you end up getting a kill, it gives you a little extra XP and score there as well. And also, like I said, sharing it with your team also helps you out beneficially for score as well. But the TAC 5 is something that is very fantastic, and to me is one of the best things that we could have in terms of team play, but it grants all teammates 200 HP. And again, this is one that also changed since the E3 demo as well as reveal build of the game, because you actually previously had to point and shoot to which teammate you wanted to boost up to 200, and you had to do that for however long you had that available, and so you could end up boosting your teammates or individually each teammate back up to 200 HP. But now you end up only pulling out a tablet which grants all players on your team 200 HP automatically. And it's something that takes only like the snap of a finger in terms of getting yourself outside of the gameplay and being vulnerable, but the nice thing is it also is rechargeable very fast compared to the other ultimates within Black Ops 4. So that said, if you want to play a little bit more team-based and team-oriented, you cannot go wrong with Crash. But the final one, the one that really takes the cake here for me in Black Ops 4 as the best specialist, is without a doubt in my mind Recon. Now, knowledge is power, that's an age-old saying, but Recon really gives you a ton of information on where the enemies are, because he has the vision pulse, but also the sensor dart. The sensor dart is probably one of my favorite things here within the game as is, and it's something that recharges relatively fast as well. This is something that you can end up shooting to pretty much anywhere, and it'll stick to any wall, ceiling, floor, or any surface, and it's a portable radar around the map to, once again, wherever you choose to shoot it. So that's something that'll give you the lowdown of where the enemies are. But once you end up getting your ultimate of the vision pulse, this is also one of my favorite abilities, because though it's only for 10 seconds or so, 10-15 seconds, you get a ton of assists, so your score goes up drastically. The knowledge of where every player is comes out for everybody on the team, not just you, and there doesn't seem to be a drop off whatsoever. It seems like you can end up seeing players across the map with their exact locations, or if they're right in front of you behind the next wall you're looking at. So in that sense, it's absolutely fantastic for knowledge knowledge and knowing where the enemy is and predicting and being able to set yourself up for a good position in a gunfight. So in that sense, Recon is by far my favorite specialist here within Black Ops 4. You guys may differ, but that is where we're going to wrap it up here with this one. So that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Is there anything that you guys would like to change here out of this list? Is there anything you don't necessarily agree with, or would you slightly reposition any of these specialists? Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this and what your list of your top 10 specialists are. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this helped you out in some way, shape, or form and you found it insightful. If it did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Call of Duty Black Ops 4. We're going to be killing it with content here coming up through the first weekend of the beta as well as the second next weekend. So stick it right here up on the channel if you guys are interested in any of that. Tips, tricks, best class setups, news, information, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel. So if any of that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And also, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And also, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram as well, that link is also in the description below for you guys if you want to toss a follow. But let's head out of the way. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, get going, and jump into Black Ops 4. Peace.